The Mandalorian, the latest and only live-action TV show entry for the Star Wars universe, and likely the reason you got Disney+. Most of you. There's probably people who probably actually just want Disney+. I mean, I'm not going to discount that, but I also know a lot of people who are probably going to cancel their subscription until Season 2 comes out. A highly anticipated show created by many recognizable names in the Hollywood, zeitgeist, including Jon Favreau, someone who has been integral to the MCU, and a lot of people are excited to see now that Star Wars is under Disney's banner and they're apparently doing some MCU crossovers. Would we get some of that MCU quality coming into a Mandalorian Star Wars TV show? And my answer to that is yes and no. I liked The Mandalorian, but before I get into that, I need to clear something up here, reflecting my last TV show review, The Witcher. I gave it a 6.5 out of 10, and a lot of people thought I was saying it was bad by giving it a 6.5 out of 10. I do not think a 6.5 is bad, and if you hear me say that, don't think I'm saying it's a bad TV show. I just don't buy into this video game review, because that's where it comes from, philosophy, that anything below an 8 is bad. That's just not true, and it's not how it's going to work for me here. I have the spectrum being like, 1 is god-awful on the level of like Red Letter Media is going to review it on best of the worst kind of stuff. 5 is average. It's okay, maybe good. 6 is above average, and the further you get from there, the closer you are to achieving greatness. Once you're hitting 8, you're in contention for best of the year. 9, definitely, probably. And 10 is something I will only reserve, especially for TV shows and movies, for something that is I've never seen before. It's just elevating things, spectacular. Like 2001: A Space Odyssey is a 10 out of 10 because, it was 2001: A Space Odyssey. Because I don't believe in giving something like Season 1 of The Witcher, which I thought was good but not great, that high of a rating. Because let's say Season 2 of The Witcher is great, next level, absolutely stunning to watch. Where am I going to go if I already gave it a 9? Well, I gave it a 10, I guess. And then if I guess if that a 10 and Season 3 is even better, where do I go from there? A lot of people just constrict themselves to reviews, and I find it kind of laughable that you think anything less than an 8 is bad. I just refuse to buy into that. No, a 6.5 is good. That's solidly good, and I thought Season 1 of Witcher was solidly good, but it also had issues, and I think the people who are denying it had issues are crazy. I watched that CGI dragon again with all those jump cuts and tell me that was flawless. And yeah, whatever. That's just my philosophy going in here, and I hope people can understand that I'm just going to have lower numbers than some other reviewers who just like to hand out the higher ones, and I'm not trying to bash them. I get it. They're having more fun with it than I am, probably, and that's great. But let's go ahead and jump into my review of The Mandalorian. So, The Mandalorian, thankfully, was a weekly release. I'm kind of not a fan of these just all-at-once spew-out dumps that we're seeing from Netflix. I hope they change up that mentality. And I think I was actually able to enjoy Mandalorian a bit more because of spacing it out. I don't think this would be one that I actually would enjoy binging as much. I like having that weight of what's going to happen next, especially after some episodes, though that tension was definitely broken by other episodes. And I guess it's my first criticism, but not huge one. I don't think this is the worst thing ever. A lot of people, when I said this on Twitter, assumed I was heavily criticizing the show for this, but I wasn't. But many episodes of The Mandalorian do feel like filler. They're not really related to the main story we're setting up, and they're just exploring the Star Wars world in this seedy underbelly, which, don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed. But aside from little snippets here and there to kind of build things for the actual main storyline, you could 100% just remove them from this season and it wouldn't change anything. So that's kind of the definition of a filler episode. Now, don't think that filler means god-awful and horrible. No. In fact, one of my favorite episodes, the one that takes place aboard a prison ship, was maybe the most filler aside from backstory. But I just think that people who want to jump to this show's defense so aggressively by saying, nothing's filler, really need to pay more attention. But let's go back into the praises here, because I have a lot of strong ones. The Mandalorian acting was really well done across the board. Several characters, of course, the main character maybe being the best and most impressive. I've never acted under a heavy mask, but just watching him do it, there were clear choices he made that I thought were genius, and respect as someone with very mild acting experience. He had impeccable timing and carried himself with a demeanor that really made me buy into him as the Mandalorian. And most other acting I did think was okay. There was a few people who were clearly not the strongest actors in the world. I'm assuming some of them them were just friends of people who were in charge of making the show or something. A couple standouts include the woman in charge of the hangar bay and one waitress the Mandalorian encounters. Just for some reason, their acting grated me like crazy, but that's fine. Now, we can't talk about the acting without talking about the puppeteering of Baby Yoda, the single little character that solved all world problems according to the internet. Nothing's a problem anymore. We're all okay. No more war or world hunger. Baby Yoda's here. I thought Baby Yoda was incredibly well done from a puppeteering perspective and a mixture of CG. There were definitely shots where it jumped from one to another, but this little guy was just such a joy to watch, not just from the cuteness perspective, but just his presence on screen. While he was stiff in some ways in these moments, still loved it across the board. Definitely a brilliant character to introduce, and I think we've seen the internet react so strongly because of how well it's being done. No one's memeing on it as like a bad thing. They're just memeing on it for being so unbelievably adorable. Now, switching over to just more the overall look of the show, while I found the cinematography to be jaw-dropping at times, stupidly well done, there were VFX that did not live up to that bar, and I guess this is going to be a consistent theme among me reviewing TV shows, because at several instances in The Mandalorian where there are just effects that did not register as real or completely disconnected from the environment around them, which is a shame. We've seen shows who pull this off. I'm not just talking about Game of Thrones, but they'll pull off every bit of VFX without a hitch, and a lot of these shows with a more tight timeline that are being pushed out a little more quicker to make that buck don't always have that, and I feel like that will be an inevitable consequence of what we're seeing. None of it was egregious enough to really be offensive to the eyes. It will just stand out to anyone who pays attention. So, not the worst thing ever. I think the most notable example is speeder bikes. In some scenes look really good, and others have no weight or presence, which is kind of weird to say about a hovering craft, but you know what I mean, within the shot. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the story. Obviously, everyone's had Baby Yoda spoiled for them. I can get into that. The basic setup of this show is just pasted all over the internet. We have a bounty hunter who finds a Baby Yoda and becomes his caretaker. Sorry if that was somehow not spoiled for you, but I have a hard time believing that. I won't spoil anything else beyond this without a massive warning, but that is the setup. And as I said, that happens in the first couple episodes, and then in between that and the last two, there's some episodes that are pretty closely tied into that and others that are wholly removed and just fleshing out the Mandalorian's backstory, which I enjoyed, or the world, which is cool. I liked all of that. That was fun. But for me, this is an unpopular opinion, because according to every other review, the last couple episodes were just spectacular. I think the weakest of the show was the last two episodes. It kind of went a little too unbelievable for me. Mild spoiler warning. There was just instances where the heroes are standing in the middle of a crowd of enemies being shot at, and they're fine, like nothing's hitting them while they're hitting bullseyes. And that to me, like, come on, we expect better action than that in a TV show today. I get the meme of stormtroopers being bad shots, but having like 100 of them circling our guy, shooting and all missing is just, at that point I just checked out. I was like, all right, nothing matters. There's no stakes. There were also just a couple offensively stupid choices from villains that were clearly just to allow our heroes to have time. There's actually a villain who, for no reason whatsoever, or maybe they gave some incredibly flimsy excuse, just says, "I'll give you till nightfall," and walks away for no reason. Like, come on, really? You gotta give me something more than that. You can't go that Western medieval mustache twirler, because, well, The Mandalorian is without a doubt trying to be a Western. We actually had that confirmed from people involved in the show. This is a homage to Westerns. We need to elevate beyond the source, and upgrading villains from those campy Westerns is a must, because it kills me as a viewer from being invested really heavily in the action taking place on the screen. So those were a couple reasons why I just kind of didn't 100% love these last couple episodes. I also found the ending itself to be a little too campy for me. But all of that negativity, all of that being said, I still really like The Mandalorian. It was so much fun from beginning to end. And if you just kind of let it be that fun ride, I think I'm kind of cynical. I think most people will enjoy it even more than myself. There are very few flaws with it that you can point out and just say that was a waste of time or poorly done. And I like it. Aside from my kind of tastes of kind of pulling away from camp a bit more and maybe leaving some of those Western genre inspired tropes behind, there's few things I can point out as bad. So for me, The Mandalorian's gonna land a solid 7 out of 10, especially when it comes to just the way I'm vibing with where the story's gonna go. Even though I had my issues with season 1, I'm very invested to see where season 2 is going to go. And there's been fan service that is kind of got me hooked and enticed right at the end of the last episode. I saw it and I was like, oh shit. And for some reason that really hooked me. And it can't be, it's corny, but I like that one thing a lot. Anyways, that is my final thoughts on The Mandalorian, Disney Plus's latest attempt to get you hooked into this live-action Star Wars TV shows. Are you excited for the Kenobi TV show? Did you love or hate The Mandalorian? Let me know in the comments down below. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here. Have a good one, y'all. Peace. And of course, I want to give a special shout out to my latest high tier Patreons. We have Lord Philip the Merciful. Glad you're so merciful. And we also had Saucebot. I like that. Thank you guys so much for being high tier donors. Much appreciated. And I appreciate you. That's all I have to say really there. Oh, and I think, and Adam. Did I already say Adam? Adam, you're getting a shout out again. Just saying, getting happening. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.